What's going on, everyone? It's your boy Savvy, and welcome back to the Savvy Show. And today we have an origins video, and this one is the origins of SCP-106, the young man. So different from the old man, because you know, origins back in the day. So yo, I'm excited to see who this dude was before he turned into SCP, or maybe was born as this creature that we saw in the last video, and we'll see his upbringing. But I hope it's the route that he was previously a human, because there's like a theme going on. Now some of these SCPs are like obviously like not the god level ones. They were previously like humans and something happened to them. So we shall see. Hopefully he's an old human, and we'll see what kind of person he was when he was a young man. So if you guys are excited to see this origins video alongside with me, please remember to smash that like button. It'll take less than a second and it'll mean the world. Also, we stopping now, so hop on in if you haven't subbed. There's a few guys didn't make the jump. Like a few guys haven't subbed to the channel. You guys are watching the video, so all you guys, don't be window shoppers. Hop in, have a good time. I don't bite. We're gonna go full throttle, so let's get it, man. Let's make this video the time you jump in. So yeah, and also remember, turn on post notifications as well too, so you know exactly when I'm dropping heat, because most of the time I do more than one upload a day. So just behooves you to, you know, stay tuned if you want that dose. And with all out the way, original link description below. So without any further ado, let's get this show started. Alrighty, origins of SCP-106, the young man.
Nobody could like Corporal Lawrence. That's not to say that nobody tried or that he was somehow unfriendly, merely that he was one of those few that seemed to be wired differently.
I'm assuming Corporal Lawrence is the old man, or should I say young man?
However, in the trenches of World War I, normalcy was at best a relative term. Lawrence fought, listened to orders, and didn't disrupt the other soldiers, and that was all that was required. So what if the people felt increasingly uncomfortable around him, in a place where the baseline of concern was the flesh rotting off your bones while you were still alive? A little personality conflict ranked several levels below a paper cut. Lawrence, for his part, dealt with it as he always had, that is to say, remained totally unaware of the avoidance, the same way a man blind from birth cannot mourn the memory of color. Corporal Lawrence couldn't bemoan a lack of company.
Wow.
He was quiet, as he had nobody to talk to.
That's deep.
And still, as he had nothing to do for long stretches of time. The enemy trench, less than a mile away, had gone silent for several days. This amplified the unease that seemed to radiate off of Lawrence like heat waves. The worst part was that there was no distinct reason to dislike the corporal. He was a plain man, average height, average build, bland of voice and action. Nobody could recall him raising his voice in joy or anger. He did have the occasional odd mannerisms, however. He tended to stare a beat or two longer than was acceptable at people.
Damn.
He rarely slept as well, and bunkmates said he would mumble in his sleep almost constantly. The content of those nocturnal ramblings, when they could be understood, were often odd and potentially unsettling. One private moved to another barracks when he heard the name of his daughter pass Corporal Lawrence's lips, followed by a bubbling, muffled giggle. It was strongly theorized that he was...
What kind of dreams is this dude having? Let's just keep it pushing.
Sent over the trench by his commanders more out of a desire to have him away than for his minimal combat skill.
Damn.
He and 14 of his fellows were sent across the nightmarishly scarred waste of the no-man's land between the trenches to scope out the enemy trench and secure it if possible. Many seemed to hope that Lawrence would have the opportunity to prove his devotion to his country by making the ultimate sacrifice for it.
Oh, to kill himself?
While he was gone that someone started asking questions. Nobody remembered him ever talking of home. No sweet-smelling letters came, no soggy, dirt-streaked letters left. Questions started to float among even the higher levels of the command. Nobody was able to actually find his station orders. He'd come in with a squad of reinforcements transferred from France, but there was no paperwork. The rest of the reinforcement squad had never seen the man before he'd been lumped in with them the night before the trip,
What?
along with the snips and scraps of other squads decimated by the Germans. Whispers filtered among the grunts of the corporal being a curse. Nearly every man who'd shared a bunkhouse with him had gotten trench foot, and the rooms he haunted always seemed to smell more musty and sickly sweet, even from the trench. The men sent over the no man's land with Corporal Lawrence heard and cared for none of this. Just another man among many, all with death certificates awaiting a stamp that could fall at any moment.
Pretty much.
They moved fast and low, from crater to crater, slipping over slick mud and barbed wire, the only thing that seemed to grow in that blasted waste. Charging the last spur and into the trench, they were greeted not with the harsh bark of German orders and rifles, but a dense, closed silence. Preparing for ambush, the men started to filter out into the tunnels and halls of the trench.
Okay.
The men, already nervous, were not calmed by their investigation. The trenches stank of mold, sweat, and a thin undercurrent of rotten fruit. A vile, cloying slime seemed to have pooled in every divot and crack, sticky as glue and itchy on the flesh.
Wonder if he really is a curse.
Private Dixon found the first body and managed to cry out before vomiting. They knew it had been a man only because nothing else of that size could have been there. It lay on the floor of a barracks. The entire floor.
Bro.
The flesh of it had been smeared somehow, spread like butter over the rough dirt floor. Bones, already looking pitted and rotten, stuck out at random angles, like dead trees in a still swamp. The skull rested on one of the highest bunks, facing the doorway.
And it still has a brain in it.
More remains were found, each seemingly more unsettling and strange than the last.
Where's Corporal at?
Unfathomable horrors were discovered one after the next, sending men retching and running from the trench.
Damn.
Corporal Lawrence was the first to find the hole. It was small, no more than 4 feet across. It seemed to be the accidental uncovering of a natural chamber, the empty blackness of it defying investigation.
Let's see what happened.
Dixon, recovered and blessedly numb from his previous ordeals, saw the corporal prod the edge with his boot, then crouch to peer in, then suddenly slide in head first before the private could so much as utter a shout of question. When questioned later, he could provide little illumination as to what happened over the 2 minutes Corporal Lawrence spent in the hole. He could see nothing, the light of a torch seemingly gobbled up a few feet into that dense blackness. There were sounds, the rustle of movement over loose stone or rubble, an odd liquid shifting, a dry rustle that made him think of insect husks. As he shouted for aid, there was a sudden upwelling of a repulsive stench.
Oh my
his fellow soldiers found him retching helplessly beside the hole when they came around the turn.
This is probably where he takes his transformation to the old man. Bro.
It was as they rushed to Private Dixon's aid that the hand emerged from the hole. They stopped and raised rifles as one body, roaring for the owner of that pale, trembling hand to identify himself. As they watched, another hand joined the first, followed by the pale, shivering head of Corporal Lawrence. He was streaked and smeared with a tarry black ooze, hacking and coughing dimly as he hauled his body up beside that of the gasping private. As they moved to help the man, the corporal vomited up a heavy stream of the same repulsive slime that coated his body in smears and globs. They were hesitant to touch him, finally doing so after the seemingly endless river of grime stopped pouring from him.
I'll touch it with the butt of my gun.
Eyes rolling and wide, body as limp as a boned fish. The men fled the trench with all the speed they could muster.
Dang.
Half dragging the corporal, they ran with no thought of cover or death, only escape.
Wow, good on them. I thought they wouldn't give a hell. I thought they wouldn't care about him, to be honest. The way they were talking to him about hopefully he makes the ultimate sacrifice, send him to the trenches because they don't want to see him because they think he's a curse. For them to not care about their own lives and picking him up and just, taking him to safety, props on them. I mean, wow, I didn't expect that from these group of soldiers.
They crossed in record time, falling into their home trench, gasping and shivering. One man, known to have bludgeoned a German to death with a brick, curled on the floor in a sobbing heap. The commanders moved quickly, isolating the men and trying to calm the most lucid for a report. What spilled out would have been immediately dismissed as lies and hallucination were it not for the earnest, pleading stares of those reporting. Command calmed them with explanations of battle fatigue and strange gas weapon tests, and shared silent, focused stares as the cowed men were ushered out.
Damn.
Corporal Lawrence had little to report. Of his time in the hole, he could or would say little. He stated that he had slipped, and fallen into what may have been some long-blocked underground pool or
Nah.
perhaps a buried latrine.
This boy
Of the
different
sounds
now.
and smells reported by the private, he had nothing to say, only that he had struggled a short time, then managed to get back out just as the men arrived.
Nah, this boy's different. Don't you see his face? Come on. This guy, is there something up in his head that ain't supposed to be there, bruh? This might not even be the same corporal.
He seemed none the worse for wear. In fact, he seemed in better spirits than many had remembered ever seeing him, favoring the commanders with a wide, giddy smile as he was dismissed with a warning not to discuss the events. Not one man from that trench survived the Great War, although few died in battle. A wave of sickness took the trench a few days after Private Dixon's death. It seemed to eat the flesh like acid, men waking to find previously healthy flesh eaten down to the bone, oozing and blackened.
The corrosion. Basically the corrosion of the old man. Bro, oh my god.
Corporal Lawrence was remanded to a French mental ward, transferred after several complaints from the hospital proper where he was first sent. It seemed his behavior hinted at a growing mental imbalance. The corporal would rant quietly to the other patients, whispers about endless halls, pursuits in the dark, flesh laid out like pages of a book. It was dismissed as war fatigue. He vanished several times from the ward, only to appear several hours later as if nothing had happened.
What the hell?
When pressed, he would begin to sing "My Body Lies Over the Sea" in an endless monotone until the doctors left exasperated. A stale, musty foulness seemed to sit in the air wherever he stayed, and incidents of infection and the strange consuming sickness that had beset his home trench seemed to follow him like a cloud.
Damn.
Numerous attempts were made to transfer the man, only to be met with bureaucratic confusion. No records were found of the man, no entry papers, commendations, or incidents, not even a birth certificate. Through it all, he sat for hours on end, cross-legged on his bed, occasionally humming tunelessly or rambling off the names of his wardmates between short, bubbling giggles.
Yeah, this is definitely military fatigue. Come on, B. Yo, you guys could make up something else for like whatever condition he might have, but we already know like this, he's a SCP now. But that's crazy. There's no information whatsoever, even before he turned into the creature that he is right now. What? Like, who is he? Like, who is he? And the weird dreams that he was already having before, like, this is kind of weird, bro.
Corporal Lawrence and 18 men vanished one November night between a 5-minute nurse rotation at 3 in the morning. The room reeked of rust, oil, mold, and sweet rot. Thick black swaths of crumbling ooze coated the beds and several of the walls, wide patches of it smearing and eating into the floor. Of the men, there was no sign at first. As they searched, one nurse shifted a bed aside, only to shriek and nearly trip across one of the sunken, reeking depressions on the floor. In a tight, perfect spiral were what appeared to be hundreds of teeth resting neatly on the floor. After counting, they accounted for the total of all the teeth of every living soul in that ward, but one. The corporal was never found, nor were the men. The incident was swallowed by the constant barrage of horrors from the front and forgotten with ease. Still they came. Stories of strange deaths, of disappearing men, found days later alive but broken and twisted beyond comprehension. Stories of strange, dark figures stalking the bomb-riddled towns of Europe.
This was good because the guys are in the portal. The guy's in that dimensional portal. And then, like what we saw in the last video, he takes them out when he's bored with them, which is basically when they're on the verge of dying most of the time. And that's why they come out all broken and battered. Wow, bro. This is a lot more dark, though. This one's a lot more dark. Holy shit. Is it over? Yeah, it's over. Dang, and that's their old man. Wow. This was good. This was really good because it shed some light about SCP-106 in a way where they did go over his origins, but at the same time, it's still a mystery because who is this dude? We didn't know who he was. They had no record of him even being in the military. Like, he just came with the reinforcements. There's not even a birth certificate. So, like, is there anything else that was special with him before he went through this transformation that we probably wouldn't have known? Or like if someone else fell through the hole, would they have gone through the same transformation that the young man did? Or is it because he's some special kind of entity? I don't know who he is. I don't want to classify him as a human right now because there's no birth certificate, man. So who knows? But I'll probably find out later in the future. So if you guys know the answers to the questions I have, though, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. But with that all out the way, if you guys enjoyed this origin video, please remember to smash that like button. Also smash the sub button if you're not already part of the family. If you guys have not made that jump yet, let's make this video the time that you make the jump. So hope you all join the family, and also remember to turn on post notifications because I make multiple uploads a day and I hate for you to miss one. So unfortunately, that concludes today's show. However, I'll always catch you guys on the next one. With